Story's called Eyes, Bones, and Other Troubles. And it begins. Bong! The stroke of midnight rang throughout the abnormal town of Chai Chai, or Chi Chi. Yes, it was abnormal, and that was the way it would stay. Unless, aha, I have it. Unless that shudder monster goes away somewhere, someplace. But how? Nobody knew anything at all about this hair-raising monster. And yes, he did make hair raise and teeth chatter. Everyone thought the only reason he lived was for blood. You might ask him why no one tried to kill him. Well, the answer is, in the most recent sentence, the only reason he lived was for blood. Okay, so, all right. Bong!
Very postmodern writing. It's very self-aware narration.
The last stroke of midnight. Everyone in the town of Chi Chi shuddered. For at the stroke of midnight, it was the time for the monster's midnight snack, which was exactly one body. No more, no less. Except his birthday, which was how old he was that day. His birthday was New Year's Day, so that led to other problems. There was no New Year's celebration in this town like the other towns had. Only for the monster. The town was completely silent as the monster trudged up to the opening of it. A piercing squeal came from the house next to this horrible monster. He turned slowly, with capital letters and dashes in between each of the letters, slowly, and dragged his feet to the house. He tore the roof off and savagely threw it in a ditch. Then he peered inside. He looked in closets, drawers, and other places, and finally found an innocent little girl at the age of 6, trembling under a bed. The snarling monster turned the bed upside down and grabbed the poor girl. Sarah was her name. Sarah started crying, then screaming, and then she was dead in the monster's stomach. Blonde hair, blue dress, and all. The monster trudged back towards the hills. His arms and face were flaming red, and the zigzagged red stripe on each of his legs seemed to glow in the darkness and silence of the night. A coal-black claw came up to his forehead to scrape away an ugly fly. His blonde hair, his blonde hair rustled in the wind and sounded like branches crackling. His purple eyes gazed up at the sky, and a scowl crossed over his face. For there was a full moon, and that meant the werewolves would howl all night. He stopped for a moment to dance to the birds' angry chatters, and his 5 different shades of blue dress shook. So the monster's wearing a blue dress and has blonde hair, just like the girl he ate.
Weird. Maybe he becomes whatever he...
He licked his brown lips, for Sarah had been very tasty. His name was Swelloburpo Beck.
Swelloburpo Beck?
Yes. It's 2 names, Swelloburpo, and the family name was Beck.
No relation to the musician.
No.
Or Jeff Beck.
Or Glenn Beck. When he arrived in his cave, he glanced in his mirror. SSB, short for Swelloburpo Beck, is beautiful, he said in Retsnam talk, which is, I guess, his language. It was the only language he spoke, yes. In his language, he said, rip, rip, and root, root, root. He paused to look at his human collection. It contained 2 bones, 4 eyes, 3 tongues, and some black and brown hair. It was bits and pieces of the stupid, idiotic people who had tried to capture Swallowburpo.
If I was the teacher reading this, I'd be like sending them to like the diagnostic center right now. I think you need to see this child. She's not right. Distracted run.
What they saw, they had never survived to tell. That was why no one knew anything about this monster.
Except for the description that we've given you earlier.
Swallowburpo looked around his cave. On the wall there were 3 pictures. Alright, 3 pictures on the wall. One that consisted of only blue and yellow stripes. Another with 2 faces on it.
And a Matisse.
And a third of what you really couldn't call anything.
Oh, the National Gallery Voice of Fire needs a companion.
On his bureau, so Swallowburpo has a bureau in his cave, there was a plate of cookies. And hung on a wall, and hung on a nail, there were a pair of ice skates.
Can I ask a question?
This is the wall-mounted monster.
Swallowburpo only lives for blood, right? Why does he have a plate of cookies?
Dude, to cleanse the palate. Alright, pair of ice skates hanging on a nail on the wall. One of the tiny picks from the skates lay on the floor. Swallowburpo picked it up and gobbled it down.
Again.
On a little shelf off the place where the skates were was 10 or 20 eyelashes from unfortunate people. Above the skates, so the skates are a real central
Motif.
yeah, on the
Canadian
wall.
monster.
Above the skates were 10 false black nails that were used if any fearless people thought fighting 10 nails wasn't enough.
So that would,
Above the
give him
skates were
20.
10 false black nails that were used if any fearless people thought fighting 10 nails wasn't enough.
he's got 10 of his own, but
Right.
if they're not scared of those 10, he's
Then-
got 10 more.
Oh,
So
thank you.
20. 20 was.
Yeah.
Right.
Alright.
Thank you. Clarification.
So,
The
to,
magazine.
to wrap it up,
Scares me.
I
the la-
understand her.
It scares me you got that.
the final sentence. To end the day, Swallowburpo Beck.
Oh.
In case you thought we were talking
We're
about
not on a
Swallowburpo.
no longer on a first name basis.
Swallowburpo Beck, Ms. Beck, I suppose, yawned 3 times, blinked twice, and then dropped to the floor for a sleep with an ear-shattering crash.
The end.
Wow.
That's the drawing.
The
Blue
3
dress.
paintings, the 2 faces, there's the bones
Oh,
and the
yes.
and the
I
eyeballs,
think Swallowburpo.
the skates, the bureau.
Wow.
It's a dude.
Little leg there, sort of.
Yeah, it looks like it's been eaten
A little
bit.
knock
But
knee.
I think Swallowburpo is a dude, and he takes on some of the qualities of the people the person
That
that
he's
he's just
just
eaten. Sarah's got a big grin on her face. I love it.
That was Sarah's favorite.
I love it.
Swallowburpo.
It's I love how she goes to the trouble of saying the long name and then doing the abbreviation, but then never using
Uses
the
it after
abbreviation
that.
again.
Yeah. Because Swallowburpo Beck just rolls off the tongue. That's
Right.
why.
Well, and there's like the narrative techniques are quite interesting through it because it actually does kind of take you through these really strange journeys where you start off like very postmodern, but from the perspective of the monster's quite evil and horrible, right? Coming to descend on this village, but then when you actually start following the monster, we switch. And we get to see the domestic side of the monster.
yes.
From the ins- like
Did you just make that up? Like, or do you really believe that? You're just saying that.
Well, I like how there's no happy ending all of a sudden either, like on the Grinch or some comparable
Right.
tales, right? It always, the Grinch gets better and his heart gets bigger and everyone loves him.
And this was more like your life.
Just on a practical, wouldn't this village run out of people really quickly? And why do they stay there? Just
Yeah, good question. Just go away. He's there.
Well, you know what? Sorry,
Cheap
right though.
real
That's like
estate.
typical horror movie stuff. Look at there's that barn where 18 people were viciously slaughtered last week. Let's go in and look.
come on, let's go. No, it's scary. Come on, don't be a fraidy
I
puss.
dare
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's right. They're all living in the village on a dare. They're living there on a dare.
What are you doing here? Yeah, I lost a bet. Yeah.
Where's your daughter?
That's funny, that's how I got involved in this project.
Oh.
Ouch.